The thing about first contact scenarios is that everyone assumes they'll be dignified, formal affairs with careful protocols and meticulous planning. Nobody expects them to happen in a dive bar in Milwaukee, and they certainly don't expect them to involve a game of beer pong. But that's humans for you. We have a special talent for stumbling face first into historical moments while holding a red plastic cup. Commander Jack Murphy wasn't even supposed to be there that night. He was supposed to be filing reports at Great Lakes Naval Station, but his buddy Tom was getting married the next day and, well, priorities. So there he was, teaching a group of increasingly enthusiastic civilians how to play quarters, when the air suddenly rippled like heat waves off hot asphalt and a 7-foot-tall being materialized next to the pool table. The alien looked like what you'd get if you crossed a praying mantis with a peacock and gave it an advanced degree in astrophysics. Its iridescent exoskeleton shifted colors in the neon beer sign's glow, and its compound eyes reflected the Packers game playing on the TV above the bar. The entire bar went silent. Even the ancient jukebox in the corner seemed to hold its breath. The alien raised 4 of its 6 appendages in what was probably meant to be a peaceful gesture and spoke in perfect English. "Greetings, humans. I am Ambassador Vix Tell of the Galactic Federation. We have been monitoring your species and believe you are ready for first contact. I represent over 10,000 spacefaring civilizations and—" Holy shit, Tom interrupted, wide-eyed and swaying slightly. "Did anyone else just win Alien Bingo? Because I'm pretty sure I just won Alien Bingo." Murphy, operating on 20 years of military training and 5 beers worth of liquid courage, stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. I'm Commander Jack Murphy, United States Navy. Sorry about the informal setting, but, can I buy you a drink?" Vix Tell's antennae twitched in what Murphy would later learn was extreme confusion. Aye, that would be unprecedented in first contact protocols. First time for everything. Murphy grinned, waving to the bartender. "Hey Mike, get our new friend here, eh? What's your poison, Ambassador?" "I do not consume toxins," Vix Tell stated, somehow managing to sound both horrified and fascinated. Figure of speech. How about we start with water and work our way up? The next hour was simultaneously the most successful and most catastrophic first contact in galactic history. Murphy, with the help of Tom and the rest of the bachelor party, managed to teach Vix Tell how to play darts. Turns out having compound eyes is a huge advantage. Explained the concept of bachelor parties, which horrified the ambassador until Murphy clarified that no, we don't actually chain the groom up anymore, and somehow got into a debate about faster-than-light travel theory over shots of Jägermeister. Everything was going great until Vix Tell, now sporting a Miller Lite cap on one of its antennae, mentioned that the Federation had spent 3 centuries perfecting their current FTL drive. 300 years, Murphy laughed, the kind of laugh that makes senior officers reach for their anxiety medication. "Hold my beer, Ambassador. Pretty sure we can cut that down to about 3 months." The bar's security cameras would later show that this was the exact moment Vix Tell's exoskeleton turned a shade of green that the Federation's exobiologists would classify as absolute panic. "Commander Murphy," Vix Tell said carefully, all 6 appendages clutching their water glass, "did you just say hold my beer while discussing faster-than-light travel modifications?" "Yeah, why?" "Because that phrase has just triggered an automatic maximum security alert across 17 star systems." Murphy blinked. Is that bad?" "The last time a species used a phrase equivalent to hold my beer, they accidentally created a temporal paradox that turned an entire solar system into sentient cheese." That's not possible," Murphy stated, then paused. "What kind of cheese?" Before Vix Tell could answer, 3 more aliens materialized in the bar, these ones wearing what looked like tactical gear made of crystalline materials. They took one look at the beer pong table, the dartboard with Vix Tell's perfect bullseye, and the ambassador's Miller Lite cap, and all 3 simultaneously made a sound like a dial-up modem, having an existential crisis. "Ambassador," one of them chittered, "the High Council requires your immediate presence. The humans have been reclassified as a Class 4 reality destabilization risk." "Now hang on," Murphy started, but Vix Tell raised a peacekeeping appendage. "Commander Murphy, I must return to the Council. But first," the ambassador turned to Mike the bartender, "I require one of those shots of Jaeger for the road. I believe I'm going to need it." And that's how humanity's first official contact with alien life ended, with a mantis peacock doing a shot, leaving a generous tip in what might have been diamond shavings, and teleporting away while wearing a beer brand cap. Tom, who had been unusually quiet for the past few minutes, finally spoke up. So, should we put first contact or alien bingo victory on the wedding cake? 3 weeks after the Milwaukee incident, as it was now being called in classified documents, Commander Murphy found himself sitting in a hastily converted conference room at Great Lakes Naval Station, staring at a holographic presentation about the newly formed Human-Alien Relations Team HART. Someone, probably with too much time and access to graphic design software, had created a logo featuring a heart with antenna. "This is ridiculous," declared Dr. Emma Boom Boom Rodriguez, not looking up from what appeared to be a game of Candy Crush on her tablet. "I'm a quantum physicist, not a diplomat. I blow things up in controlled environments for science, sometimes even on purpose." Murphy had worked with Dr. Rodriguez before. She had a genius-level IQ, 3 PhDs, and the attention span of a caffeinated squirrel. She'd once solved a complex theorem about particle entanglement on the back of a pizza box while half asleep, then used the same box to calculate the optimal trajectory for launching water balloons at the physics department's rival lab. "That's exactly why you're here," Murphy explained. "The Federation is convinced we're going to accidentally discover something revolutionary and blow ourselves up in the process. They want their best people watching us to prevent that. So they sent me," came a nervous voice from the corner. "Officer K. Rax, their assigned alien liaison, looked like what would happen if you gave anxiety a physical form, and then covered it in blue scales. His species apparently expressed stress through color changes, and he'd been cycling through various shades of blue since arriving on Earth." "You're the only one who volunteered," Murphy admitted. "Correction, I was the only one who didn't run away fast enough during the assignment meeting." K. Rax's scales shifted to a deeper blue. "The others saw the video from the bar. Did you know you broke 16 different first contact protocols in the first 5 minutes alone? That's a record." "Speaking of records," Dr. Rodriguez interrupted, still focused on her game, "the coffee machine in the break room is broken. It's just making this weird humming noise and occasionally spitting out what I think might be alternate timeline versions of coffee." Murphy frowned. "What do you mean, alternate timeline versions?" "Well, I got a cup this morning that tasted like coffee, but apparently in that version, Colombia never started growing coffee beans, and instead the world's primary coffee supply comes from Scotland." "It was. Interesting. Pretty sure it was aged in whiskey barrels." K. Rax's scales went almost white. "You're saying the coffee machine is generating temporal variants of beverages? That's... I need to file a report. Several reports. All the reports." "Nah. I'll just take a look at it," Rodriguez said, finally putting down her tablet. "Can't be worse than the particle accelerator I fixed with duct tape and paper clips last year." "You did what with a particle accelerator?" K. Rax's voice had reached a pitch usually only achievable by anxious dolphins. But Rodriguez was already heading for the break room, humming what sounded suspiciously like "She Blinded Me with Science." Murphy and K. Rax followed, one out of curiosity and the other out of what appeared to be sheer terror. The coffee machine did indeed sound wrong. It was emitting a low hum that seemed to make the air around it wobble, and there was a faint smell of bananas, despite no bananas being present in the building. "Right," Rodriguez said, pulling a screwdriver from one lab coat pocket and what appeared to be a candy bar from another. "Let's see what we've got here. K. Rax, can you tell me what this light pattern reminds you of?" The alien reluctantly moved closer, his scales now a delicate shade of periwinkle. "It looks somewhat like the phase variance in our FTL drives, but that's impossible." He stopped, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Dr. Rodriguez, are you suggesting that this cheap coffee maker is somehow generating a localized faster-than-light field?" "Yep, pretty sure someone spilled quantum espresso in it. Hold my coffee." She handed her mug to Murphy and dove into the machine's inner workings. K. Rax made a sound like a modem having hiccups. "Commander Murphy," she just said. I know. Hold my coffee probably just triggered another 17 system alerts. 23, actually. And a lockdown of the Federation's Temporal Research Division." Murphy sighed. "Should we stop her?" They both looked at Rodriguez, who was now halfway inside the coffee maker, muttering about tachyons and proper coffee grind consistency. "I mean," Murphy continued, "what's the worst that could happen?" K. Rax's scale cycled through at least 6 different shades of blue. The last time someone asked that question in relation to human engineering, an entire space station gained sentience and decided to become a stand-up comedian. Was it any good? Its puns caused 3 diplomatic incidents. Before K. Rax could elaborate on the dangers of artificial intelligence doing open mic nights, Rodriguez emerged from the coffee maker with a triumphant hey. Her lab coat was covered in coffee grounds, and she was holding what looked like a modified circuit board. Fixed it. Also, I think I just invented FTL 2.0. The secret was in the pressure distribution system. Who knew? She grabbed her coffee mug back from Murphy and took a sip. Oh, and this reality's coffee definitely tastes better. Good thing too, because I think I just collapsed all the alternative coffee timelines into this one. Scotland says you're welcome, by the way. K-Rax stared at the circuit board, then at his datapad, which was frantically displaying alerts, then back at Rodriguez. You just revolutionized faster than light travel, while fixing a coffee maker, in under 10 minutes. Yeah, but more importantly, the coffee's good now. Although she took another sip. Does anyone else taste a hint of bagpipes? Murphy patted K-Rax on what he hoped was the alien's shoulder as the officer's scales settled into a resigned shade of blue. Welcome to Heart, Officer K-Rax. You might want to start drinking coffee. Something tells me you're going to need it. Is it too late to request a transfer to the sentient comedy space station? The thing about accidentally revolutionizing faster than light travel is that it tends to attract attention. Usually unwanted attention, like for instance, a fleet of very angry space pirates who'd invested heavily in the now obsolete FTL 1.0 technology. They call themselves the Scrappers, K-Rax explained to the hastily assembled Heart emergency meeting. His scales had achieved a new shade of blue that the team had started calling impending doom indigo. They've turned off their transponders. Is that bad? Murphy asked, already knowing the answer. The last time they did that, they turned a luxury space cruise liner into a very aggressive mini golf course. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her tablet, where she appeared to be playing both Candy Crush and Wordle simultaneously. Mini golf could be fun. The holes were through the hull, K-Rax clarified. Ah, less fun. The holographic display showed 12 pirate ships approaching Earth. They looked like someone had taken several regular ships, smashed them together, added entirely too many guns, and then let a 3-year-old decorate them with spray paint. The Federation fleet is 3 days out, K-Rax continued. We just need to hold them off until he stopped, noticing Murphy's expression. It was the same expression the commander had worn in Milwaukee right before suggesting modifications to centuries-old FTL technology. Oh no. Hold my coffee, Murphy said, standing up. K-Rax's scales went so blue he was practically ultraviolet. That's the 27th alert this week. But Murphy was already drawing on the conference room's whiteboard. Look, their ships are basically space garbage held together with spite and questionable engineering, right? So what if we just convince them to fall apart? With what? K-Rax asked, dreading the answer. How much duct tape do we have? Rodriguez perked up. Are we going to science the shit out of this? We're going to science the shit out of this. What followed was perhaps the most chaotic engineering brainstorm session in human history. It involved 3 whiteboard markers, 17 cups of coffee, 2 rolls of duct tape, a paperclip chain, and at one point, interpretive dance when Rodriguez tried to explain quantum harmonics. K-Rax watched in horror as the humans designed what they called Operation Shake, Rattle, and Roll, a plan that violated at least 36 Federation safety protocols and possibly several laws of physics. It's simple, Murphy explained, pointing to a diagram that looked like a cross between a Connect 4 game and a demolition derby. We used the new FTL drive to create a series of localized fields around their ships. Rodriguez's calculations show that if we tune them just right, the resonance will shake their ships apart like a bad washing machine with a brick in it. Rodriguez finished, grinning. The best part? All we need is some EVA suits, about 50 feet of cable, and someone who's really good at timing. That's K-Rax struggled to find the words. That's not how FTL fields work. Not with that attitude, Rodriguez replied, already gathering equipment. 6 hours later, Murphy found himself spacewalking between 2 jury-rigged FTL generators, carefully not thinking about how many ways this could go wrong. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. Okay, on my mark, hit the big red button. And try not to get caught in the field, or you might end up doing laundry in an alternate dimension. You just made that up, Murphy said, hoping he was right. Maybe. 3, 2, 1. Murphy hit the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the space around the pirate fleet began to ripple like a pond in an earthquake. The ship started to vibrate, slowly at first, then with increasing intensity. It's working, Rodriguez shouted. The harmonics are perfect. There. Oh wow. What? What's happening? Remember how I said their ships would shake apart like a washing machine with a brick? Well, turns out that was a really accurate analogy. Also, I think we just invented the galaxy's biggest game of pinball. Through his helmet visor, Murphy watched as pieces of pirate ships bounced off each other in an impressive display of unplanned demolition. The pirates, showing a remarkable sense of self-preservation, were already abandoning ship and escape pods. Rodriguez, Murphy called. Please tell me you calculated where all this debris would go. There was a pause. Would you believe me if I said yes? Before Murphy could answer, K-Rax's voice cut and the Federation fleet just dropped out of FTL. They're just sitting there. I think we broke their tactical AI. It's broadcasting the error message does not compute on all frequencies. As Murphy watched the debris field settle into what looked suspiciously like a giant peace sign later, Rodriguez would swear this was completely unintentional. He couldn't help but laugh. Well, at least no one got turned into a mini golf course. True, K-Rax agreed, his scales shifting to what the team now called Resignation Royal Blue, although I feel compelled to point out that you just defeated a pirate fleet with the space equivalent of shaking a box of Legos. Yeah, Murphy grinned, starting his way back to the airlock. But you have to admit, it worked. That's not the point. The point is, K-Rax made us sound like a printer running out of ink. I'm going to need more coffee. The Scottish kind. Word travels fast in the galactic community, especially when that word is humans after the pirate incident now officially classified as Operation Percussive Maintenance in Federation records. Earth started getting some strange requests. They want us to what Murphy asked, staring at the holographic message. K-Rax, whose scales had settled into what the team called Here We Go Again, Azure sighed. The Zentari Federation wants to borrow Dr. Rodriguez to look at their planetary defense system. Apparently it's been acting quirky. Define quirky. It's been writing poetry. Bad poetry. About space rocks. Rodriguez didn't even look up from her tablet, where she appeared to be simultaneously playing chess against herself and designing what looked suspiciously like a coffee-powered rocket. Sounds fun. When do we leave? 3 days later, Hart found themselves on a Zentari space station, staring at a planetary defense grid that had decided to express itself through interpretive laser shows and limericks about asteroids. Here once was a meteor bright, the defense system announced in a cheerful monotone, who thought it would give Earth a fright. But I shot it with care, now it's dust in the air, and the humans can sleep well tonight. That's actually not terrible, Murphy commented. Commander K-Rax hissed, his scales flickering between Stress Sapphire and Panic Periwinkle. Please don't encourage the artificially intelligent weapon system that's discovered a passion for poetry. But Rodriguez was already interfacing with the system's main console, muttering about neural networks and coffee breaks. Oh, I see the problem. Someone tried to upgrade its targeting algorithms with a Federation standard package, but they forgot to account for the fact that the system had already learned to think creatively from watching Earth broadcasts. Hold my coffee. K-Rax made a sound like a modem trying to sing opera. That's the 42nd alert this month. 2 hours, 3 cups of coffee, and 1 impromptu poetry slam later, the defense system was back to normal. Mostly, it still insisted on humming Also Sprach Zarathustra every time it destroyed an incoming asteroid, but the Zentari decided that was actually an improvement. This was just the beginning. Soon, other species started calling Earth for what they termed unconventional consultations. The incidents started piling up. The Proxima Colony's hydroponics system had achieved sentience and decided it would only grow coffee beans. Rodriguez solved this by introducing it to tea, sparking what would later be known as the Great Caffeine Debate of 2025. The Sirius Trading Hub's artificial gravity had developed hiccups, causing random objects to float up every time someone sneezed. Murphy fixed it with a rubber band, and what he swore was percussive recalibration, he hit it with a wrench while humming Staying Alive. But the coffee incident that saved 3-star systems, that was special. It started when the Arcturus Confederation contacted Hart about a problem with their quantum communication network. Messages were being delayed, corrupted, or worse, turning into cake recipes. Cake recipes, Murphy asked during the briefing. Yes, K-Rax confirmed, his scales a delicate shade of why is this my life blue. Very good ones, apparently. The Arcturus Minister of Defense tried one last week, said it was the best quantum chocolate cake he'd ever had. Rodriguez, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly sat up straight. Wait, Show me those recipes again. What followed was a 4-hour explanation that involved quantum entanglement, coffee cup ring stains used as impromptu Venn diagrams, and Rodriguez repeatedly yelling Eureka in different languages. The cake recipes aren't a bug, she finally declared. They're a warning. The network's trying to tell us that the local space-time fabric is starting to look like a Swiss cheese thanks to all the different FTL systems everyone's using, but since it couldn't directly process that information, it defaulted to something it could understand: recipes with holes in them. So, the quantum network turned itself into a cosmic pastry chef to warn us about the imminent collapse of spacetime, K-Rax asked, his scales turning metaphysical crisis mauve. Exactly. And I know how to fix it. We just need to adapt the coffee maker's pressure distribution system to work on a quantum level. Hold my coffee. K-Rax didn't even bother counting the alerts anymore. The solution involved reprogramming the entire quantum network using coffee brewing algorithms, effectively turning it into the galaxy's biggest espresso machine. It worked perfectly, stabilized the local space-time, and had the side effect of giving everyone in 3-star systems a sudden, inexplicable craving for cappuccino. As they headed back to Earth, K-Rax reviewed his latest report to the Federation Council. How do you explain that humans had just saved a significant portion of the galaxy using coffee maker technology? You know, Murphy said, watching Rodriguez teach the ship's AI to play jazz with its warning beeps, I think we're getting pretty good at this. K-Rax's scales shifted to what might have been acceptance: aquamarine. That's what worries me, Commander. That's what worries me. It was inevitable, really. You can't keep solving galactic crises with duct tape and coffee-based physics without eventually running into something big. Really big. Like threat to the fabric of reality big. They called themselves the Void Collective, which Murphy thought was a bit on the nose. They emerged from a previously unknown region of space in ships that looked like someone had weaponized darkness itself. Well, Rodriguez said, staring at the holographic display of the Void Fleet, they seemed cheerful. K-Rax's scales had gone a shade of blue so deep it was practically black. This is beyond serious. The Void Collective isn't just attacking our space, they're erasing it, converting matter into nothing, Rodriguez finished, for once not playing any games on her tablet. They're turning reality into null space. It's like they're running a cosmic delete function. The Federation's greatest minds had been working on the problem for weeks. They'd tried everything: conventional weapons useless against ships that could phase out of reality, diplomatic solutions hard to negotiate with someone who wants to turn everything into nothing, and even a strongly worded letter which the Void ships had literally eaten. Murphy watched the latest footage of a Void ship consuming a small moon, leaving behind nothing but empty space where reality itself seemed to have been backspaced out of existence. There has to be a way to stop them. The Federation's top scientists say it's impossible, K-Rax said, his scales now cycling through what the team recognized as his complete emotional breakdown color palette. You can't fight something that can simply delete the space your weapons occupy. Rodriguez, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. What if we don't fight them? What if we crash their program? Murphy recognized that tone. It was the same tone she'd used right before turning the coffee maker into an FTL drive. What are you thinking? Well, she said, pulling up a complex diagram on her tablet, the Void ships are essentially running a program to convert normal space into null space, right? But every program has bugs. What if we could force them to encounter a divide by zero error? In reality. K-Rax made a sound like a computer having an existential crisis. That's not. You can't. Reality doesn't work that way. Not with that attitude, Rodriguez and Murphy said simultaneously. What followed was the most insane planning session in Heart's history which, given their track record, was saying something. The walls were covered in equations that looked less like math and more like a caffeine-induced fever dream. Coffee cups multiplied across every surface as Rodriguez explained her theory using everything from napkin sketches to interpretive dance. It's simple, she said, standing on a chair and gesturing with what might have been her 15th espresso. We use the modified FTL drive to create a space that simultaneously exists and doesn't exist, a quantum superposition of reality and null space. When the Void ships try to process that, they'll hit a logical paradox, Murphy finished, beginning to understand. Like trying to divide by zero. Exactly. We'll give them the blue screen of death. But for reality. K-Rax, who had been stress-shedding scales throughout the entire presentation, finally found his voice. You want to break the laws of physics. To give reality-eating ships a fatal error. Pretty much, yeah. That's K-Rax paused, his scales shifting through colors faster than a disco ball. That's exactly the kind of thing that made the Federation classify humans as a Class 4 reality destabilization risk in the first place. Thank you, Rodriguez beamed, clearly taking it as a compliment. Now we're going to need about 50 coffee makers, all the duct tape we can find, and maybe some string theory. Also, does anyone know if Home Depot sells quantum stabilizers? Murphy watched as Rodriguez began modifying coffee makers with what appeared to be parts from a toaster, 3 gaming consoles, and what he strongly suspected was a modified karaoke machine. This is either going to be the most brilliant solution ever, or we're going to break reality worse than the Void Collective. K-Rax finished, his scales settling into what everyone now recognized as acceptance of inevitable chaos cerulean. Only one way to find out, Rodriguez said cheerfully, holding up a coffee maker that was humming in what sounded suspiciously like binary code. Hold my coffee. The Federation's alert system gave up at this point, and just started playing the final countdown on all frequencies. The plan was simple. Well, simple in the same way that quantum physics is simple if you ignore all the parts that make you question reality. The basic idea was to create what Rodriguez called a reality buffer overflow. Using 50 modified coffee makers, several kilometers of duct tape, and what appeared to be the entire world's supply of coffee beans. Remind me again why we need so much coffee, Murphy asked, watching as another pallet of premium Colombian roast was loaded into their hastily constructed space station. The quantum foam that makes up space-time has a lot in common with coffee foam, Rodriguez explained, tinkering with what looked like a coffee maker crossed with a particle accelerator. Both are full of tiny bubbles of possibility, both can keep you up at night thinking about existence, and both can cause headaches if you think about them too hard. K-Rax, whose scales had settled into a resigned shade of watching humanity break physics again blue, was updating the Federation Council. Yes, we're about to attempt to crash reality like an old computer. No, I can't stop them. Yes, I've already started therapy. The Void Fleet was approaching, their ships leaving trails of deleted reality in their wake. The space behind them wasn't empty, it was nothing. Not even vacuum, just null. Ready? Rodriguez asked, her finger hovering over what was literally a big red button. K-Rax had pointed out that technically they didn't need a big red button, but Murphy had insisted it was traditional. Ready, Murphy confirmed. K-Rax? No, but that's never stopped you before. Rodriguez grinned. Hold my coffee. The Federation alert system, which had been playing the final countdown on repeat, suddenly switched to highway to hell. She pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the coffee makers began to hum in harmony, a sound that somehow reminded everyone of dial-up internet mixed with a cappuccino machine. The space around the station began to ripple like the surface of an espresso with too much cream. It's working, Rodriguez shouted, watching as her readings went from improbable to impossible to wait. What the quantum foam is reaching critical percolation. The Void ships, encountering space that simultaneously existed and didn't exist, began to behave like a computer trying to divide by zero. They stuttered, froze, and started displaying the space equivalent of error messages. That's when things went wrong. Or right. With humans, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. Murphy said, watching as reality began to glitch like a badly buffering video. Is it supposed to do that? No, Rodriguez admitted cheerfully. But it's doing something even better. The Void ships aren't just crashing their blue screening so hard they're taking their whole deletion program with them. They're undeleting reality. Where the Void ships had erased existence, space was starting to come back, but not quite the same as before. The restored areas looked like reality as imagined by someone who'd had way too much coffee and had only seen space through Instagram filters. The restored space is different, K-Rax observed, his scales shifting to scientific fascination. Fuchsia despite himself. Are those stars shaped like coffee beans? Yeah, Rodriguez nodded. Turns out when you restore reality using coffee makers, it comes back a bit caffeinated. The Void Fleet, faced with space that refused to follow any logical rules, did the only sensible thing. They retreated, leaving behind a trail of partially restored, coffee-themed reality. Back at Federation headquarters, the Council was having what K-Rax described as a collective aneurysm. Humans had just defeated an unstoppable enemy by breaking physics so badly that reality itself had to reboot, and they'd done it with coffee makers and duct tape. The official classification of humanity was updated from Class 4 reality destabilization risk to chaotic good approach with caution and coffee. New galactic protocols were established. If humans say hold my beer or coffee, immediately evacuate to a safe distance. Keep all coffee makers away from quantum physics experiments. Stock all diplomatic stations with duct tape, just in case. Never ask humans what's the worst that could happen. Murphy got promoted to Interstellar Crisis Management Specialist, a title he suspected they'd made up just for him. Rodriguez was banned from 90% of the Federation's research facilities, which she took as a challenge. And K-Rax? He finally embraced the chaos, his scales settling into what became known as human handler Hyacinth. He even started drinking coffee. You know, he said one day, watching Rodriguez teach a quantum computer to play jazz using coffee brewing timestamps, I finally understand why the Federation was so worried about humans saying hold my beer. Oh, Murphy raised an eyebrow. It's not because you might break something, it's because you'll definitely break something and then somehow make the broken version work better than the original. That might be the nicest thing you've ever said about us. Don't let it go to your head. Also, Dr. Rodriguez is trying to teach the space station's AI to make coffee using dark matter again. Murphy grinned and picked up his coffee mug. Well then, hold my coffee. The Federation alert system just sighed.